but then as I got older and, got to know them, got to know their lifestyle, got to know, how they lived and what they did to get there, it kind of gave me a better avenue towards, just how to get there and what to do. And more so how to act and how to be a better hockey player. So.
Welcome to Hockey Culture, everyone. This is the place where we try to change the culture of hockey, one interview at a time. We have a very special guest joining us today from the Vegas Golden Knights, Zach Whitecloud, the first indigenous NHL player from the Sioux Valley Dakota Nation. Zach, welcome.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, guys. Appreciate it a lot.
I want to know, what was the reception like back home on the reserve when you finally played your first NHL game?
There's a lot of words I can throw out for that one. I think proud would probably be the one that comes to mind, that sticks out the most, honestly. Not even just my parents or my family members, but all the people from back home in Sioux Valley were very excited to be able to watch on TV and see one of their own. People from the community that I didn't grow up on the reserve for my whole life. I visited and my dad's family's from there, so we always were out there for family gatherings and things like that. And I always played for their hockey teams too growing up. So I think it was cool for them to kind of be able to see someone from their own community, make it to the highest level of their profession. And obviously, again, that word of proudness I think comes to mind and sticks out. So
I can only imagine how proud everyone was because they actually helped put you through hockey. Chief Jennifer Bone said that they invested in you. So it was important to see that you have the success. I mean, what do you feel when you know that the community, not only emotionally, but actually invested dollars to make sure that you had an opportunity to play hockey? How does that make you feel knowing going out on the ice that the whole community is behind you? They've invested in you literally.
Yeah, well, like you said, I've always had support from my community and chief and council throughout my career as a kid, starting early on when I needed help with travel and hotel accommodations, and as going on the road as a young kid, you're staying in hotels 3-4 days a week on some weekends, and obviously you're paying for meals sometimes 3 times a day. And for my family that didn't really come from a whole lot of money, that's I realize now more than I did before that's extremely tough on a parent. And so for our community to help us out with that and kind of take some of the load off my parents and their financial situation was very meaningful. And I understand it more now than I did before. And that's just me being a kid, not understanding that situation of, how much money actually is going into me going out there and playing hockey and having fun. And, all I knew as a kid was I get to go and play hockey and have fun and play with my buddies and go away for the weekend. And but now that I'm older and I understand those things, I get emotional sometimes thinking about it because, like I said, we didn't really come from a whole lot of money. And, my parents did everything to, keep me in sports and keep me a part of a team and make sure that I was doing something that I loved. So obviously for them to reach out to Sioux Valley for help and, have that financial stability. I'm very grateful to Sioux Valley for just supporting me all throughout. And that even extended through to college when I played up at Micheal State. They helped me, with some of the tuition and things like that and some of the expenses. And, that goes a long way in making sure that, I'm able to do something that I love and, very thankful for them for doing that.
I never grew up dreaming to be in the National Hockey League. I love the NHL. I didn't see players that looked like me. So it wasn't something I aspired to. I wanted to play in the national team, play for Team Canada, play in the Olympics. Claude Vilgrain played in the Olympics. I thought there could be an opportunity there for me. But you said in the past that your low expectations allowed you to go out there and play freely. I grew up in Toronto, a hockey hotbed where everyone thinks they're going to be an NHL player when they're 5 years, and their parents too. But you have the exact opposite approach like I did. Can you explain that a little bit further?
Yeah, and I was the same as you, where I just played the game for fun. I think if a guy says that they didn't have dreams of playing in the NHL, I think they'd probably be lying. Because everyone wants to be there, but there's a difference of wanting to be there and knowing that your chances of getting there aren't very good. And I was that kid. I loved the NHL. Me and my dad watched. We didn't have a favorite team. We watched everyone. It didn't matter who was on, TSN or whatever channel it was. We were watching hockey, and, watching those games, I always dreamt of being out there, but knew that, and I was a pretty honest kid. And I mean, I knew I probably wouldn't get there. And that was just the reality, but it allowed me to go and play hockey again for fun and play it because of my friendships and play it because I love the game, and just going, like I said, going away on weekends and having fun in the hotels, going on the road with my dad and my mom, and, just jumping in the car and going. And that was fun for me. And again, even when I got to, the AAA ranks, the junior ranks, I still had that same mindset where, I'm like, I have like 3 or 4 years left where I can enjoy this game. And then I'm probably getting into the workforce and really finding what I love to do, whether that be university or college down south or whatever it was. So I was pretty honest with myself, and it's not that I didn't dream of doing it. It's just that I realized my situation in life where I probably wasn't going to get there. And, that was okay with me. And looking back on it now, it's not that I didn't have the drive to do it. It's just that, I grew up in a place where, like, a lot of guys didn't, get drafted into the Western Hockey League, didn't get drafted in the NHL, weren't on those like early draft rankings. So I wasn't really exposed to that. And I didn't really know a ton of people in my community that had made it to the NHL. Like, guys from my community were Micheal, Ferland, Matt Calvert, Joel Edmondson, Ryan White. A lot of those guys I didn't get to know because they're in a different age group. So, but then as I got older and, got to know them, got to know their lifestyle, got to know, how they lived and what they did to get there, it kind of gave me a better avenue towards, just how to get there and what to do. And more so how to act and how to be a better hockey player. So, again, I think I was the same as you, where I just played the game, for the love of the game, just to go and have fun with my buddies. And, a lot of that, again, not to get off topic, but started from the outdoor rinks back home. And that's where I played, shinny pickup and stayed out there for, 6-7 hours a day. And that's where the love of the game started. And I think that's kind of what carried me through, all the way to now.
The love of the game certainly will help you get over some of those peaks and the valleys, because you're going to encounter them, and you have already. Like yourself, I was cut a couple times from AAA hockey teams. What did you use, or what did anybody tell you to help you get over that hump and to keep striving going forward and not giving up? Because it could have been so easy for you to give up after being cut from several teams, and you're undrafted too before you went to Bemidji State. What was your driving force? Was that love of the game, or the fact that you had so much fun playing hockey that it wasn't that important to you to really get down on yourself because you love playing the game so much?
Yeah, I think the last point you talked about, the love of the game and having fun with it. For me, just a quick story. So I had been cut my 2 years, because as you get 3 years of AAA midget. So my first year I got cut and I played high school in my hometown. Second year I got cut and went and played AAA somewhere else in a small town called Portage La Prairie, in between Winnipeg and Brandon. And then my third year, I had kind of given up on myself. I'm not, proud to say it now, but like, the kid I was, it was a tough thing to go through, and I didn't want to face getting cut a third time just because I kind of had enough. And which, rightfully so. I mean, no one wants to get cut 3 times in a row from their team that they, truly want to play for. And so that third year, I wasn't even going to go to tryouts in Brandon, because in our system in Manitoba, you have to try out for your local team first in order to go and try out somewhere else. You have to get cut from that local team. So I talked to my mom and I said, hey, look, I don't want to go and try out. I just, want to play high school, and then I'll go to university and wherever in the next year and just kind of get on with my life. And she's like, okay, that's fine. And then once tryouts kind of came around, my parents never pushed me in either direction. They pushed me to play sports, but they didn't push me to go and, if I didn't want to do something, I didn't have to, as long as I was playing a sport. And I was still going to play hockey that winter. It might have just not have been at the AAA level. And, my parents were fine with that as long as I was happy. And again, I'm grateful for that too, that they didn't force me to do anything. And then, as tryouts kind of came, my mom said, why don't you just, I'll pay the $75 for you to go and skate. Why don't you just go and get some ice time? And I kind of fought her back and forth a little bit, and because I didn't want to face that embarrassment, right? Because those were all my friends that I go to school with, and that would have been tough for me if I didn't make it. And so she kind of, gave me the nudge to go and just skate and get the ice time. So she kind of tricked me a little bit. So she pushed me to go. And, I texted the coach and I said, hey, look, is it okay if I come and try out? And he said, yeah, absolutely. We'd love to have you. I was like, great. So I went and tried out. I eventually did end up, doing pretty well. Made the team. And then, halfway through that season, I got picked up by a junior A club out of Verdun, Manitoba, just about 45 minutes west of Brandon. And then everything kind of took off from there. And, so I think my parents, and my dad had, something to do with that too. So I'm not giving him props, but it was my parents that kind of pushed me. And I think that's where it started, where, if I hadn't done that, I probably wouldn't be here talking to you.
I'm telling you, families, it's a common thread when it comes to guys making the National Hockey League. I don't know one player that's played the National Hockey League without the support of their family. And need to give the shout out to all the hockey moms out there. Hockey moms are fierce. And like your mom, my mom exactly did the same thing to me. I wanted to quit when I was 15. I was sick and tired of the politics. I was over it. I played baseball at a very high level. I wanted to play MLB baseball. My mom said, you know what? You love playing hockey so much. Just play one more year. And after next year, if you don't like it, then you can hang up the skates and do whatever you want to do. Pick up the bat and your glove and play baseball full time. Thank goodness I stuck with it, because who knows where I'd be today. But my mom, my dad was supportive, just like how your dad was too. If my mom never said, Anson, stick with it, keep playing, I would never have been a National Hockey League player. So, Absolutely. But I want to fast forward now to Bemidji State. Now you went there, you're a stand-up defenseman there, and you're undrafted, which is the best thing ever. I got drafted in the 10th round. I'm still not over it today. I carry that chip on my shoulder today still, that I was a 10th round draft pick. And I wish I was undrafted like you were, because now you get to pick and choose where you want to go. How did you decide that Vegas was the right spot for you?
Again, once I, had gone through that process of not getting drafted, I was kind of, over it. And, one of those guys that said, the draft is overrated sort of deal. And kind of trying to like brush it off a little bit. And, when that first year of Bemidji, I had been invited to LA development camp, and I went there and, got a taste of kind of what the NHL was and how it worked, how the prospect pool worked. And then that second year, that's when, I started to get phone calls, and when it kind of clicked in that I was, going to be able to do something with hockey was, I started to have NHL GMs starting to call me. I said, that's no coincidence. Obviously I'm doing something right. And in their situation, they just want to get a grasp for the person. They probably know who the player is, talking to coaches, old coaches and those sorts of deal, but they want to know who the player or who the person is. Mm-hmm. And that's the process that I learned is probably one of the most important parts, is that, GMs want a person that's going to impact their organization in a positive way every single day. Right. And they want to have someone in the room that's going to, help their team, not hinder it. So being able to go through that process and talk to GMs and just kind of let them know who I was, what I stood for, where I kind of came from, what I've gone through, that sort of deal. And I thought those things were important for them to know, just so they knew the person that they could get. So at the end of the year, we lost to Michigan Tech, I think in the first or second round. And then I went down to Brainerd, Minnesota, which is about 2.5 hours south of Bemidji, to my agent's house to kind of sort through phone calls, meetings, those sorts of things. And we gave ourselves about 5 to 7 days to make a decision, because our plan was to make a decision and then kind of go to the NHL and kind of get that experience. So I think going through that and kind of eliminating teams, having conversations, and also we're going through depth charts, right? Because you want to go to a place. It's not just about going to a nice city or because all my friends had asked me, you're like, where do you want to go? You want to go, like Tampa Bay or like all these nice warm places. They're like, why don't you go there? And it's like, well, it's not just about, going to live somewhere, because you have to go through the minor league system. You have to go through a system that's going to help you develop, help you get to the NHL, not at the quickest pace, but at the right pace for you. And one thing that really stood out for me about Vegas was they laid out a plan where they didn't say, hey, look, you're going to come in and contribute right away. And I think it would be easy for teams to say that to an undrafted guy because they want them. And no one ever did that to me. No one ever, came in and said, hey, look, we'll play you right away. You're going to play all the time. No one ever said that. But Vegas laid out a plan for me to develop, to go into the minor league system, get experience, get reps, and just kind of become the player that they thought I could be. And if I didn't go through that minor league system and go through that development path, I wouldn't be here, on the team today and contributing in the way that I can and I know I can. And so ultimately what came down to it with Vegas is that, obviously, Vegas is an incredible city. And after that first year, they created a culture here that, I wanted to be a part of and I knew I could step in and be a part of. Whether that was the first year or 2-3 years down the line, whatever my development path determined.
So that's a very mature take. I mean, it's clear that you played college hockey where you had that outlook on life, because so many players don't take that approach. A lot of guys want to get there. They got their quick cup of coffee in the National Hockey League, but it doesn't become a career. Whereas you knew from the outset that you wanted that you wanted to make it an NHL career, not just a cup of coffee in the league.
I have a very good, group of guys behind me too, in my agents, and Dean Grillo, Matt Oates, and Eustace King, who, had talked me through and gone with me through that whole situation of, finding a team, finding the right spot. And they told me the whole time, they said, look, you're not going to go into the NHL right away. And, I knew that from the beginning, but they just kind of were very honest with me throughout the whole process. They said, look, you're not going to go in there and contribute right away, because you have to go through steps in order to get there to contribute. You have to develop your game. You have to develop as a pro. You have to develop as a person, how to be a part of a pro locker room, how to act within a locker room, how to do all those things away from the ice, how to manage your body, and then manage things away from the game as well, right? Like finances and things like that. So for me, it didn't matter how long it took. I knew I had a development process, and they said, we don't want you to go in and come back down, go up, go down, go up, go down. We want you to go in and stay in. And I think that was kind of what stuck with me is, obviously when you go through the AHL, some days can be tough. The grind can be tough. As like everybody, I think, as that league isn't that, that easy as people think. It's a tough league to find your way in. So for me, going through that process, knowing that, at some point I'm going to go up, and once I get that opportunity, I'm going to take full advantage of it and just stay there. And, for me, that was kind of the driving force for me going through that process was, just stick it out, keep doing the things that you do well, pay attention, be a good teammate, be a good person. And, good things will come. And obviously, my opportunity came in my second year after a couple injuries. And I think by then I was ready to, come in and, contribute and kind of learn the NHL game as I went. But as you learn it, you have to jump in and take advantage of that opportunity. And I think I was ready for that at the right time. So.
Yeah, we called that the toilet seat back in the day, being up and down. Up and down.
Yeah.
You talk about those up and down scenarios, and you discuss that with your agents. Do you ever talk to any Indigenous players in the league today? There's been a big time history within the National Hockey League of Indigenous players contributing to the game. And even as frequently as a couple years ago, you saw Ethan Bear, his last name written in Cree across the back of his nameplate with Edmonton Oilers. Do you have discussions with players in the league and talk about their experiences, or are you pretty walled off from talking to other Indigenous players?
I grew up with, Micheal Ferland played in my hometown, and we billeted Wheat Kings growing up. So he was always over at the house, and I trained with him in the summer too when he was with Calgary, and then made his way to Carolina, and then obviously to Vancouver. So he was a big driving force for me and kind of letting me know, how to do things, how to act, how to train, how to do all those sorts of things. And he was one of my role models growing up. And another big one for me was Jordin Tootoo. He played in Brandon and, carved out a very good NHL career for himself. And that's one guy I really looked up to and still look up to. And, he's one of I think it's a small community of us, of Indigenous athletes in hockey, where I think it's, even if you don't know someone, I think you still have the ability to reach out and kind of communicate between one another. For me, I would have no problem calling Jordin or texting Fer and bouncing something off them, if I'm having troubles or if I have a question about something, just those little sorts of things. And those are two guys that I looked up to.
Two amazing guys to talk to. Micheal Ferland, he was a monster on the ice, worked hard, he was fearless, he's physical, played a tough brand of hockey, never took a shift off. And Jordin Tootoo, I played against him in Nashville, and I could still hear the crowd now yelling, Tootoo, because great train. It was so impressive to play against both those guys. So those are both two great role models to lean on. So I've got a little bit of Caribbean heritage running through me. My parents are Bajan from Barbados, born in Toronto, dual citizen, but I never forget where I come from. And flying fish, oxtail, rice and peas, I love it. I go back home, my parents cook it. We cook it here in my place here in Atlanta. When you go back home to the reservation, what's the dish that you look for the most? You say, hey, mom and dad, hook me up with some of this. We don't get this in Vegas.
Have you ever tried bannock before?
I haven't, no.
You gotta try some of that. So that's like a bread, like a fried bread. So that with like a little bit of jam and maybe some soup. We have a soup that's called pishtayapi soup. It's like potatoes, rice, some corn, and those sorts of things. The thing that essentially the things that the land provides us, we put into that soup and essentially live off Mother Earth, right? And those are kind of the ways that I was taught. Obviously, my people, generations ago, have lived and had nothing but the land to live off. And a lot of my family still uses those traditions and recipes to live off of. And it's a very simple meal, but it's something when I go home, or if I go to an event or a gathering back home on the reservation, that's something that's always there, and always end up overeating, unfortunately. But I think that's the way you got to do it when you go home, and obviously probably for you too, you got to take in as much as you can while you're home. And because once you're gone, you're I'm not around that sort of stuff, and not around those people when I'm here playing hockey. And so I really try to take it in when I go home and make sure that I go home and visit and have seen around the community growing up. And I think it means a lot to them, and it means a lot to me to go home and visit with them. And I will admit it is different now than when I was going to college and coming home. And there are more people that want to see you. There are more people that want to get signatures and autographs and just to talk to you and kind of what's the NHL like, what's hockey like. And for me that's pretty cool because not a lot of kids that I grew up with playing hockey had the same opportunities that I did. And I fully recognize that, and I realize those situations and kind of what their life is like. And so for me to be able to go home and kind of communicate with parents and elders and people of the community, I think it's cool for them, and it's fun for me too, just to kind of share my experiences and share my life path too.
Well, Zach, the Vegas Golden Knights organization do a tremendous job of drafting, but they also do an even better job developing. And you're developing into one of the top defensemen on their team on the ice, but you've developed into an amazing pro so far off the ice also. And as for that meal you're talking about back on the reservation, sounds like it's high in carbs. So as a hockey player that burns a lot of energy, and I still run. I don't play that much, but I run all the time. I might have to look into that recipe on YouTube and try to hook myself up. I normally say whatever happens in Vegas stays in Vegas, but thankfully today we both agreed to throw that rule out the window because I know you're on the road traveling. So thank you very much for joining us today on Hockey Culture.
Awesome. I appreciate you having me on. It means a lot.